Hi everyone, I'm Aaron from Untitled Music, and today we're going to talk about how to sound confident when we talk and when we sing. I'm going to give you some super simple exercises to try at home and you'll be sounding confident in no time. Okay, so what do I mean by sounding confident? Have you ever noticed that in your group of colleagues, there's just maybe one or two colleagues that when they do a work presentation, they just sound so confident and strong when they speak? Or in your circle of friends, for example, if you go karaoke, there are just one or two friends that just sing so effortlessly and so loudly and confidently without seeming to work very hard. Or, for example, if you're taking the public transport and there's just one person who's talking on the phone and is really loud and confident sounding. So if I were to speak to you like this, "Hi everyone, I'm Aaron from Untitled Music." Or if I were to speak to you like this, "Hi everyone, I'm Aaron from Untitled Music." Which one sounds more confident? I'm sure you would agree with me that the second one sounds more confident because I'm using a louder and stronger vocal tone. So how do we create this loud and strong voice? A lot of us struggle to create this sound because we may have naturally softer and weaker voices, and when we hear other people creating loud and strong voices, we think that we have to work very hard to create this sound, and so we tend to overpush with breath and we find our voice feeling very tired after a certain time. And so how do we get this loud and strong voice without feeling tired? The answer to this is good vocal fold contact. And I've talked about this in my previous video, so for those who haven't watched my previous video, I'll put the link above so that it's easier for you guys to view it. So how do we get good vocal fold contact? One of the easiest ways is to use a glottal onset. And so what does a glottal onset mean? An onset is simply how you start the tone. Okay, so it's the beginning of a tone, alright, and a glottal onset just means that the vocal folds are in contact first before you start the tone. So I realize all this sounds very technical, so here's a simple exercise for you to know what I mean. Just say the word eat as though you're giving a command or you're telling a child or a dog to eat. Alright, so say the word eat. Did that feel strong, confident, and loud? Alright. So we want to give a very firm command, eat, alright? So how do we know that it's a glottal onset? You hear the beginning of the tone, the way I started the word, eat. There's a little pop sound at the beginning, eat. So let's say I don't have that glottal onset. Let's say I use a different onset. So for example, if I were to say, eat, alright? You don't hear that abrupt start to the tone, like if I were to use a glottal onset, eat. Okay? So if I were to say eat, it sounds more like the word heat, alright? Because I'm starting with an airy tone, and you realize eat probably leads me to something that is more airy. Okay, so you can also use glottal onset in other words, like for example, saying a, or oi. Alright, so just imagine if someone cuts your queue when you're buying a concert ticket for a very popular singer and been queuing for days, and someone cuts your queue just like that, you just say, "Hey, oi." Okay, you realize that the sound that comes out is strong and confident, and you mean business. Okay, so we are using the glottal onset to create that impact. Oi, hey. Okay, so let's use the song as an example. Maybe you've heard the song Raw by Katy. If not, it sounds like this. Now those are glottal onsets. Hear how each "or" begins abruptly, and the resulting sound is strong and loud. Imagine if we switched out those glottal onsets to something that's not really glottal, a bit more aspirate. How would it sound? It would sound like this. Raw, ha, 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 ha. Raw, ha, 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 ha. I don't think we want to be singing that song in front of anyone. And the resultant sound is softer and airier, and it just doesn't sound very powerful. So when we do it with glottal onsets, this is how it will sound like. Raw, yes! Yes! Okay, so the trick to getting a good glottal onset is not to think that it requires a lot of work, okay? Because a lot of times we equate work to breath, and what happens? We use a lot of breath to push the glottal onset, And what happens is we'll get a constricted sound. We'll tend to get this kind of a sound, and that isn't a very good glottal onset, and there's lots of constriction in that sound. So we don't want to do that because it's dangerous for our throat. And most of the time when you hear something so loud and strong, we're taking a big breath before we begin the tone. And I've talked about this in the previous video where I talk about how do I train my breathing for singing. How do we not take in so much breath before we sing? Alright, so if you haven't watched that video, please click on the link above. We want to always encourage good vocal fold contact, and we don't want to pressure our vocal folds or create too much constriction in our throat, because that's going to cause harm to our vocal folds. And just a general pointer, if you ever feel tight in the throat when you're doing these exercises, please always have some joy and fun when you're doing the exercises. Just treat them as very fun and playful exercises, and you'll be able to avoid that tight feeling in the throat. So that's all for today's video. Remember to practice those glottal onsets, and you'll be sounding loud, strong, and confident in no time. You'll find it very hard to create such a loud and confident sound. So that's all for today's video. Remember to practice those glottal onsets. And I've talked about that in the previous video where I talk about how do you train your breathing